What do you see as the Chicago Climate Exchange's main achievements and its missed opportunities?
Main achievements was to translate a goodwill concern from all these parties into a functioning market that was the first market in the world. Let's remember, the first in the world to put a credible price on carbon that could be exchanged on a voluntary basis, creating a new currency, carbon financial instruments. The only one that's ever handled all the six gases. The first to create protocols to sequester carbon in soil, which were all copied, and not so much copied, but duplicated. And I don't think we had a missed opportunity, other than we didn't have enough people to run around the world creating progeny. We in China, we had some other progeny in place, ECX, one of them too. What happened with CCX was really that one of those quadrants didn't ignite. That the United States did not create a national cap and trade system. It was America that missed the opportunity. And, I know that sounds like we're perfect, but we weren't. Maybe if we'd been more clairvoyant, decided we needed more critical mass outside the United States among governments, but we didn't go that far. Otherwise, the achievement really is the price on carbon.
It proved to skeptics that you could create a voluntary market when there was no law by people pooling their resources and willing to take a reduction without a law compelling them to do it. The result of that was the establishment of a futures market, which we ultimately did in sulfur dioxide, the establishment of the European Union's ETS and implementing it, which is currently the largest carbon market in the world because CCX was bought by ICE. The acceptance by the European Union and the successful implementation from a pilot program from 2005 to 2007 to full-blown. And now we're about to add, the transportation credits, implementation of RGGI in California and 30 states, and perhaps most importantly, the best might be yet to come, a wide-scale implementation of market-based solutions in China. Pricing carbon trading went from being some obscure notion when Paul and I partnered in 2000 to now being a readily acceptable policy tool.
What core lessons from your experience should the next generation carry forward?
There's nothing more important that they could be doing with their financial acumen than trying to link up the science of the ecosystem deterioration we're living through, which is compounding hourly, with the mechanics of market development. And that's what CCX pioneered. And so to wake up every morning and put your clothes on and say, this is the heroine suit, this is the hero suit, is thrilling. The other thing I would say is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. There's a huge amount of research. It's like beginners are drowning in data. And so simplify, look at the history, look at what we did, how we did it. Don't be afraid of getting a no, because it's the most important work, I think, that can be undertaken today.
We built a market the size of Germany. We cut emissions, the amount that France emitted. We had 108 polluters, 400 members, all voluntary. Paul and I, have a clarion call. Voluntary markets can be done as evidenced by CCX. The voluntary carbon market today still lives. I think there's an opportunity today, and we conclude in the book, for a clarion call for more organized voluntary carbon markets that have teeth. You find an enormous market today, and the high-tech companies to reach to their consumers who are very environmentally aware. Paula and I firmly believe that the Googles, the AIs, the NVIDIAs, the all of these companies deal with constituencies that want to have a reduced carbon impact, and that there are natural solutions in reforestation and voluntary markets in a world where electricity is growing at 4 or 5%, and it is now a growth sector. For somebody to continue to build the voluntary market, and that there is not only a latent but an over demand by the Microsofts of the world who continue to seek nature-based solutions to the growing footprint they have in the carbon. So the young people should recognize that volunteering efforts and doing what Paula and I did and redoing it is not as difficult as you may think. And we did it right after 9/11, in the middle of 3 wars in the Middle East, in the middle of no support in the national. All of this was the blueprint of 2001, 9/11 thereafter is where we started. So the challenges today are no different than they were 25 years ago when Paula and I partnered together. And there is, we believe, a significant opportunity to build on voluntary carbon markets, and even more of an over demand by the high-tech companies to engage in emissions trading.
The other thing about the book is it is very interesting. Richard's part of it doesn't just start in with the derivatives trading. It goes back to his early years as an economist, how he got into environmental stuff in the first place. His failures, contracts he tried to write that failed, the things I did that didn't work. The whole book is a story of the inventive process. And the CCX is a living example of how the quote inventive process evolves. So it is a good read. It's not a textbook. It's a movie, really. When you start getting into dinners in China, this and that, could be a movie.
I take no credit for that. I give it all to Paula. who framed it all in that way. And I might say also, John, and we'll give you maybe a list of whatnot. This was a team effort. Paula had a load of people from Rowan, Ma, and other people, and we had Mike McGregor and Dan Scarborough, and there were lots of people who, were located in Chicago and London, and Neil Eckert. It was quite a dramatic story, which we try to do, but it is also a matter of teamwork and building it, and then getting lucky enough to get a great storyteller to partner with you as well as an operator. So
I don't remember the head count at CCX, but the team was lean and mean, and Richard could give you the number. But Richard told me something that I put in the book, which was that he would go around and introduce people who were working with him. And somebody said, I forget who, Richard, don't you have anybody working for you over 30? Because so those people have gone on to create Incubex and other things. And so, there's room for this generation that you're talking about. And I don't know, Richard, what was the head count? Considering everything, it was pretty small.
Oh, it was, I don't know, maybe 50 if we considered worldwide. It was a small head count, but we had technology. We had Frank Kank and legal, regulatory. We had it, but the comment was from a not-for-profit Oregon preservation group that the guy said, isn't anybody in this organization over 30, And so the hope for young people is that we built this organization on a lot of people who had no reason, to be there. A couple of graduates in ag econ from Kentucky. I mean, it was really the gang that couldn't shoot straight until it got the gun in the hands, and then was able to rapidly fire off all of these things. We haven't gotten to the Kissinger type moments of sitting for 7 or 8 straight days in the lobby of the Grand Hotel in Beijing waiting for the representations of contracts to be written. There's a whole Chinese drama, but it is important because Paul and I both think there may be a real surprise coming in China. Okay, it's quiet, it's quiet, it's quiet. Nothing happens, as Paul and I know, and then all of a sudden the world explodes. So, if I was looking for a low price, deep out of the money option, a call option, I'd like to get long calls on China starting a cap and trade market before 2030.